This is another question that a lot of people ask too, and a lot of people really want to know: how does one determine if they are a Israelite or they're a Hebrew descent? How can I really determine? Is it ancestry.com? Is it a DNA test? What really is it to determine that you're a Hebrew? Because I don't want to use Revelation and say Jesus' hair is white like wool, feet bronze like brass. I mean, this is a glorified Jesus with a sword coming out of his mouth, eyes like fire. And you got Isaiah prophesying, and he's saying things like, oh, the Messiah, he's not going to even be wanted to look at. Like, ain't nobody going to be attracted to his appearance. In this appearance, we see Jesus in his full glory. So I just want you to like speak up on that.
Well, the thing is this. Those who are called African Americans, anyone who is a descendant of people who were brought to the shores of the United States and the Caribbean and South America as chattel. Okay? You were on par with a coveted horse or cattle in the field. You became property. In the same way horses and cows and goats don't just have nothing they can do to stop men from using them. The descendants of slaves couldn't do nothing. You may have some places that revolted. Some things happened, but on the most part, slaves were enslaved. If you go into West Africa and Central Africa, where the majority of all of us come from, unless you come from those who willingly emigrated or as refugees were willingly saved out of something and brought by the government and placed here in the Americas, and you from Africa, unless you come from that stock of people, you are related to those. Now, this is the thing. Let's not get it twisted. Everybody in West Africa and Central Africa aren't claiming to be the children of Israel, first of all. But there are many who do. So remember, the claim of being Israel is different from just claiming you're a Christian or a Muslim or you're connected to some ancient African deity worship. When someone's in West Africa, see, this is the thing. You have the oral traditions of certain tribes, from the Yoruba to the Igbo,
Igbo. That's my tribe. That's my parents' tribe. That's where my parents come from. Igbo tribe.
That's where your parents come from.
Yes.
Now, more than likely, I share blood with people from the Yoruba or the Igbo as well. You know what I'm saying? That's why me and you got these full lips, brother. That's why we got these wide noses. And that's why we got this caramel skin. But, brother, among them, you have those who clearly claim to literally, flesh and blood, ethnic-wise, be descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And they're not all claiming to be Judah. Some are claiming to be from Dan. Who runs around saying we from the tribe of Dan, brother?
Judah. I hear Judah every single time. Judah. No Dan, no other tribe, no Issachar. I don't hear none of that. I just hear Judah every time. Like Benjamin.
Paul just said he's from Benjamin.
Right.
Right?
Hebrews are Hebrews.
Benjamin. Yeah, but in Africa, you have those who are claiming to be Judah, but they're also claiming to be from Dan. They're claiming to be from Gad, and some are even claiming to be from Benjamin. And some are claiming to be Levi. Now, when you say that, that's not religious. Because Jew can be religious.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say you from the tribe of Dan, it's like, well, what do you mean? Our oral traditions say that our fathers escaped when the Assyrian attacked Palestine. This is even before the Babylonian captivity of Judah. 100 years earlier, the Assyrians came in. Many of us fought war we couldn't win. We ran out of Samaria into Judah. And as they chased us toward Jerusalem, we ran into Egypt. As the Babylonians eventually attacked Egypt and North Africa, we ran across the Sahara, or we ran into Cush, into Ethiopia. Some left out of Ethiopia and went further south on the east coast and settled in Sudan. Some claim to have made it across the Sahara into lands uncharted before, which would in our modern times be Congo, Nigeria, Benin, These places, bro, or the ancient, what they call Dahomey, which was the Gold Coast, which part of today is Ghana and other places. Their oral traditions say that they claim to come from that far back. Like, we've been in Central and West Africa for 2,500 years. They're not claiming it religiously. They're claiming an ethnic identity. So what I'm saying is I identify with them in West Africa who claim to be that. Now, is there a DNA test that can prove you come from the tribe of Dan? It don't exist, brother.
Right, that's what I
Because they don't have Dan's DNA. They just don't have it. If you claim to be from Naphtali, bro, Simeon, Zebulun, Asher, if you claim that, who gonna tell you that that's not, it's not? I mean, whoever don't think so, that's fine. But if you trace your people and say, well, yo, I know that I come from these people in Nigeria, but more or less I'm sharing DNA markers with Igbo. Now there are many Igbo who claim to be Christian, but that's by a conversion into having heard, quote unquote, the gospel and you became a believer. But being a Christian does not describe ethnicity. That describes belief in Christ. And you could be from anywhere in the world. So it was that idea, brother, that got me to thinking, wow, I never knew that you had those who the slave stock come from. Among them, you have those who claim to be the children of Israel. That ain't nobody ever told me that, even if I didn't believe it. Why ain't nobody ever told us that? Why isn't the African American truly taught where he comes from in Africa and the various beliefs and tribal claims? It's because they don't teach us our history here, because they don't even know it. You know, y'all do know that the slave traders, when they tried to take Central Africa, got whooped out of there. And they stayed on them coasts, bruh. And African people, African is not an ethnicity. African just describes various tribes and ethnicities of black and brown people who dwell on the continent.
Right. That's
what we are. It just describes where we live. It's just like calling somebody African is just like calling somebody European. But someone would get specific and say, yo, I am Armenian. I am Yugoslavian.
Right.
I am French. And some will say they French by citizenship, just living in France. But some would trace themselves back to the Gaul, Frank, and Lombard and Lombard tribes, the actual quote unquote pagan barbarian tribes. There's some people who go back that far. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So no one. If I told you, if I'm European in appearance, and I told you, brother, yo, I'm French, you probably don't really care if it just means I'm really Polish, but I grew up in France, so I say I'm French by my citizenship versus if I'm claiming to come from the Frank. My people come all the way back from the bloodline of the Franks, man, way back in 5 A.D., 6 A.D., as we fought the Romans to keep our tribal lands. I come out of Rhineland. I'm original German. I come from the Gaul people. If someone just say they German, you don't care if they care that they come from the Gaul. It may not be important to you. And in you and I having this conversation, bro, this just isn't important to some people. And that's fine. It's important to me. So I determined the possibility that I come from Igbo and Yoruba people who claim to be what? Claim to be from the children of Israel. I don't care about no DNA tests about that because there's no DNA test to prove that. But I also leave license that, yo, if I somehow am not a flesh and blood descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then my people who I identify with in West Africa might come from being proselytized, meaning going as far back as the Persian and Babylonian Empire.
Right. When
according to the book of Esther, and you may have heard me bring this up before. In Esther chapter 8, when the thing that is celebrated by Israelites and Jewish people called Purim. It's a big civil celebration that happens every year in late winter. At least it's late winter here. It'd be always around March, Aprilish, right? In the book of Esther, and I'll read it for edification because maybe when some of our brethren study the Bible, this isn't something they consider. And I'm putting this out here because this is in the context of the question you asked about one determining themselves to be from the people of Israel. I'm going to go to the book of Esther, chapter 8. If you know the story about Esther, I don't have time to get into it, but she was from the tribe of Judah, a woman, we believe a woman of color, from the tribe of Judah, who became one of the chief wives of King Artaxerxes, the leader of the Persian Empire. Something got exposed that her people were from this people. There was a plot to destroy them. Once the king found out there was a plot to destroy the people that his wife come from, he gave her and her uncle Mordecai in this story. And that's just if you believe the Bible. If you don't believe the Bible, then whatever. They were given the opportunity with the king's signature to reverse the plan against them. And the day that was set to be a day of their destruction throughout the entire Persian Empire became a day that the king gave them legal license with the Persian military backing them to take vengeance on all people in all cities and provinces that they knew were waiting to do this to them. So this day of revenge become called Purim among the Hebrews. The Jewish people call it Purim as well. And this is what the Bible says, that once the tides turn, it says this. Here we go. This is the book of Esther, chapter 8, verse 9. Then the king's scribes were called at that time in the 3rd month, Sivan, the 23rd day, and it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded to the Jews, and to the lieutenants and the deputies and rulers of the provinces from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces. To every province came this writing, to every people in their language, and to the Jews in their writing and language. And Mordecai, this Jew, in the palace of Shushan in Persia, wrote it in the king Ahasuerus' name, sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback and riders on mules, camels, and dromedaries. In here, the king granted the Jews in every city to gather themselves together and to stand for their life, and to destroy, slay, and cause to perish all the power of the people and province that would assault them, both little ones and women, and take the spoil. Hey, I'm reading the Bible. It's in the Bible. So upon one day in all the provinces of the king, on the 13th day of the 12th month, the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published to all people, that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves of their enemies, right? So I'm going to skip down. It says, so everywhere that this letter came, in verse 17, in every province, forgive me for belaboring this point, but I'm hoping that this is thoroughly answering your question. In every province and in every city, wherever the king's commandment came and his decree, the Jews had a joy and glad and feast and good day. And many people of the land. Now, where is this, y'all? The Persian Empire, all 127 provinces, from Ethiopia to India. It said many people of the Persian Empire, when this happened, became Jews, because the fear of the Jews was on all the lands in the Persian Empire. So you know what that means, brother? This is this is the I'm going to say the 4th century BC. This is 300 to 400 years before Christ. People were converting to the Jewish culture or the Israelite culture, Torah culture, simply to save their lives. So from today, from Ethiopia, but we know that the people from North and East Africa settled today what is also Central and West Africa. Bro, some people over there might be claiming to be Israel for the last 2,000 years, but they families could have converted.
Right. Yeah.
Way back then. So either way, I'm just identifying with the people of the book.